Say that again. So the SAM report, SAHM report, has a way of predicting the next recession.
So it just goes back and it says, here's what the SAM report, I just was reading more about it today. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. It's easy to follow, but I had to read a couple things. So the SAM report has to do with, it looks at the unemployment rate and over the last 50 years. And then the one chart I saw took it back to 2000 and it shows the lowest points of the unemployment rate. And just as we get to the lowest point, I think there was 3 I was looking at, I'll look it up. Just as it got to the lowest point, it would have a quick surge. During that surge of unemployment was a recession. And then it would go again, and all of a sudden, unemployment rate came down, it got to lowest, and then a quick surge, that was a recession. And so at this point today, we're at 3.5%.
That's the lowest ever.
We're the lowest in the last 50 years. I just looked up on my drive here was 3.4. So we're at 3.48. So we're very close to the lowest in the last 50 years. So this question with Bury and all came up is, so will he be right? Are we at a low, and will we see a quick? If we see a hike in unemployment in the next several months, the thing is recessions don't normally get called for about a year after there's like a meltdown.
Yeah, because you need 2 quarters of consecutive negative GDP to really be called a recession. So recession is actually a lagging indicator.
Right. And so this says too, and then it also said with this SAM report is that the indicator was, I'll look it up, quarter over quarter, it had to go 0.5% increase from the previous 12-month low. I might have that wrong, but right now we're only at 0.1%. So we're nowhere close to that like surge of unemployment. They seem to have it relatively under control. But I just read about that SAM report. It was very, very interesting, right?
So what is the conclusion for that report? Are we near it, or how long will at least take for us to get into that phase?
As I read about and learning, so these are the types of things you were talking about, like what to bring to a client. So it's education and different things that they can look at so they don't start freaking out, right? Because the news is going to pitch one thing, and the Bury thing is so big right now. It caught my attention. I said, this guy's going to put up over $1 billion in shorting the market. That should grab anyone's attention. So now let's dig a little deeper. Hence, I sent out some analysts to say, I said, what's the validity of this and the importance? So now I got a couple things back from people saying, well, here's a whole bunch of more information to go on top of it. He could be right.
In case people don't know what we're talking about Michael Burry in the news saying that straight up he's going to put his money where his mouth is and actually shorting the entire S&P 500, which is the best 500 companies in North America, and he's putting his money behind it. And now Jarrett's just talking about sending a few of his own analysts to go dig in more, finding out whether it's true and what's the reasoning behind it, and just more information, right?
Well, I think, and what they came back with was, a whole bunch of other times Bury has shorted the market and been incorrect. And I've said that forever with my clients. I'm like,
And what's that stats? How many times has he actually shorted? How many times he was incorrect? And it's the same, did he put in the same amount of 1 billion or?
In December 2015, he predicted a stock market crash in the following months, but the S&P saw an 11% gain. In May 2017, he predicted a crash, saw a gain. In September 2019.
There's a difference between predicting and whether he put his money behind it.
Yeah, so I think I don't know if he actually correct. I agree with that. So I don't know with some of the people that send me the information if he actually bet on it or if he just predicted it. But that's a good point too.
Because my team, like we have our own research team, and we are subscribing to we don't call it insider trading, but we're subscribing to systems that actually track where the money is flowing, institutional side, hedge fund sides, or even directors at companies. Because they supposed to know the best. Sometimes the directors at company overreact. So a lot of time when we see most of the directors are selling, is usually towards the bottom of the market. But let's say Nancy Pelosi, all those people, you're like, hey, and the market is crashing, but hey, your personal filing, you're buying a lot of call options on Google. What is going on here, right? You're saying it's going to be recession, but so we actually track where the money is flowing. And the reason why I said that is I want to know if Michael Burry actually, how much did he put in on the table, how does that position compare to his past position that you put on?
And then what's he just saying?
Yeah.
What's he just talking about?
Because everyone can talk, right? But talk could just be a smoke and mirror. It could just be a diversion. It could just be he wants the market to move that way. And once he starts seeing the movement, he start putting position.
Well, sure. You think in Berkshire Hathaway, if Buffett says something, people listen, right?
Yeah.
And they may not. And I think if you're educated, hence you're asking like how I help my clients and what I think we should do is dig a little deeper, get to a professional, talk with someone like yourself who's potentially more analytical, because there's things that you do, things that I do for my clients that are different, but together help a client. And I think for my clients, what I try to help them with is, what have you heard? What are you learning? What do you need to know? And then I'll help them through it. But the planning we do with our clients is long-term, and it's pretty far from this stuff because this is my responsibility, right? My responsibility to sit down with someone, again, my analyst, someone like yourself, say, well, what do you know, right? Because I've only got so much time in a day. I've got family. You mentioned you like to golf and play tennis. I've got family. I've got things I like to do as well.
How old are you, Jarrett?
I'm 42.
Good.
42.
Good
So sick age.
Kids?
Hollywood. Kids, 2 kids.
The kids?
How 6 and 8.
6 and 8.
They're gonna make me go 42 to 52 overnight, but they're amazing. That's what.
Yeah.
They're the best. They're busy.
Different meaning of life,
right? Busy. Oh, and that's the thing, right? It's a different meaning. So with we want to work with clients that one. I was just saying to my director this morning that my priority is my family, and I've always said it from day one. My priority list is being my health. From the minute I wake up, Hollywood and I were talking about that. And the minute I wake up is, am I good? Is my health good? Okay. And within seconds, you know that. You roll over the morning, you're like, okay, I feel good. Then downstairs, how's my wife? How's my kids? Is everyone good? We're off to school. Okay. Now, my clients, my business, other people, what's going on in the day?
Before we go any further, I want to ask you, because you look like you're 42. You look relatively fit. You look after your health, and before this podcast, I was trying to offer you some kind of alcohol. You wouldn't take it. I was trying to get the truth out of you. But what do you do on a regular basis? Do you work out a lot? Do you take supplements, or what is your? Because a lot of people said what a podcast of Wealth Buster, but a lot of people don't realize your health is your number one wealth, and we have seen at our parents' age that they put so much emphasis on wealth. And by the time they have the wealth, they couldn't have the health to enjoy it.
They don't have health.
So now our generation kind of flip it around. Is that we enjoy and take care of that as we go. We plan like we're going to live until 150 years old, and we continue to make money and build our wealth. So what is your routine, or what have you learned over the years for that?
So there's a saying out there, and I don't know if I've made it my own, but I've changed a little bit, but it's if you don't take time to invest today in your wellness, right?
Wellness, yeah.
Yeah, invest today in your wellness. You'll be forced to spend money later to pay for your illness.
Oh, we have a similar saying in Chinese.
It's so right. So it's and I think the quote I heard before was along those lines, but I'm like, I like the idea of, so you got to invest. So supplements and, not working today, go to the gym, invest my time. So if you don't take time today to invest in your wellness, you'll be forced to spend money later to pay for it.
Usually that's more expensive, and you have no options anymore. And you're at everyone's mercy, because that's why pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money, right? Because you need it.
There's a thing going on right now, and I've had some naturopathic doctors, and we can look that up. I've chosen not to look it up yet, because I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to get into this. That they are heavily regulating naturopathic medicine and getting it out of Canada, and it's going fast.
What do you mean by naturopathic?
You want magnesium, you want green tea, you want zinc, you want calcium, you want vitamin C, gone. Basically, the fight is, and I don't know if it's the Trudeau government, whatever, is they want you to be sick. Because where does that go? To what? Pharmaceuticals. And what does that do? Money, right? And if you've got benefits, it takes the company's benefit. We talk about Canada Life, Manulife. Who pays for those? They do. But if you have no benefits, it comes out of your pocket, and illness costs more. And then if I got to go to the doctor and he's overwhelmed or she's overwhelmed, and there's 50 of us in line, well, maybe they start charging more. So I heard that from friends of mine who are naturopathic, and that the naturopathic world is what's the word? proactive, right? Being proactive.
Yes. Not reactive.
Not reactive, right? And now the naturopathic doctors I've chatted with in the past too, I'm like, what's, this was the best. She was awesome. I go, what's the difference between you and my doctor? I go, like, what?
Yeah.
She goes, she goes, if you've got a splitting headache, take Advil or you need
it only
medicine.
Solve the symptom.
Yeah. She's like, but you need
medicine solves the symptom,
Yeah.
but doesn't solve the root cause.
Yeah, 100%. And she goes, if you come to me and you've got, a huge cut in your arm, she's like, naturopathic medicine's not helping you.
Yeah.
Like, you need a doctor. She goes, so it's just with me is, do you have high blood pressure? Okay, here's some things you can start taking naturally that will lower that. Because if your blood pressure gets too high, you need medicine, man. You need something to cure that. So I really appreciated that when she was saying we're preventative and there's things you can do to stay healthy, and it's all out there and to prolong, say your life or just prolong. I would say prolong your days, right? So I heard that with the naturopathic world. I thought, man, if that goes through, people will be scrambling. That'll suck. It's like getting magnesium on the black market. Come on.
Yeah.
Like what? Really?
Yeah. It's crazy. Like I know some people might think this is conspiracy. Some people might think, hey, there's some reasons to it. But Jerry and I just sharing what we heard and what could have made sense as the governments are doing these things. And a lot of time, these supplements that we're taking, we want to have a feeling. And a lot of time that could be shown on how we look, right? So Jerry looks really healthy, not like bodybuilding healthy and takes all these steroids and all that, but you're healthy in a natural way. You work out, you look like you do all that, right? So, and if anyone's listening to this, right?
Hopefully someone is. Hopefully people are listening.
Hopefully someone. No, we got that covered. You got to start. If you're smart, just like building wealth, your wellness, you got to start building it while there's not an emergency at doing it. And if you're already in pain, yes, you should probably look at it even more. But the whole thing is that if you're looking always from the preventative standpoint, you're never going to get into the position that you have to ask for help and have no options. And you're basically getting slaughtered by anyone in line.
So you see a couple things, and to couple it with Wealth Busters with this podcast, that people are trying to break through. So in order to do that, you need motivation, you need inspiration, you need energy, you need confidence, you need all those things, right? So you'll see people at the gym, when I go to the gym or whatever, and you'll see people in there exercising who you can tell have been told by a physician. And I love it that they're there, right? And I'm the one.
Hey, that's their first step.
Buddy, and I talk about it in my book all the time. I'm like, look, just come to the gym, right? Just come, and you've done more than just sitting on the couch. Yeah. But I can tell the people who are there, who are there, they've been told to go. Yeah. Which is good and bad, because I'm like, you didn't have to wait to this point. To your point, the doctor's like, look, if you don't start exercising,
you're gonna die.
You're gonna die, right? And so in my book, I talk about that. I'm like, every time you go to a doctor, I talk about drinking water. People are like, what? I'm like, look, you've been told your whole life, it's so mundane, it's so boring, but you've been told drink water. And you go to the hospital at one point because something's wrong. I can almost guarantee you 99.9% of the time, at one point during the consultation with a doctor, if something, they'll say, are you drinking enough water? Yeah. It'll just be like a quick check off. Yeah. And why? Well, here are the reasons why. Because it does this. You never thought anything because as a kid you would drink water. My kids come in, they're flush red. They're, what's the first thing my wife says? Where's your water? Do you have water? Where's your water? Yeah. Like, it's automatic, right? Yeah. So if you do those things, and then, okay, so you drink a ton of water. And what's the right amount of water? Everyone has a different
thing. Depending on your body weight, exercise level.
All the stuff, exactly.
And listen to your body. And if you're going to start sweating a lot, right? A lot of people don't probably see on the camera. I'm not sponsored by Grace, but a few years ago, I started taking a lot of coconut water with no sugar added because I sweat a lot. I don't sweat when I'm filming podcasts, but I sweat a lot when I'm playing sports. And if I know I got to sweat a lot, even on the tennis court, golf course and all that, I'll preload with all these, knowing that my body would be deficient at it. So why do I do that? Because I know when my body needs it, the stuff is already there, so I don't get so tired, and the next day I can continue to do other sports and perform at high level. So I treat myself as a high performing athletes, even though I'm not, but I'm treating it as myself as is, because as a business owner, if I have a cloudy brain, I don't make the right decision.
100%. Like and you nailed it.
Everyone should treat them that way. And if you treat yourself this way, you will see your world as a whole different thing. I know I offer the alcohol there, but I don't really drink alcohol. I have like hundreds of bottles at home. I just give it away. People give it to me. I give it away because I don't drink that much. But yeah.
I say, and I talk about this in Make It a Great Day too, is when it comes to, I couple it with sleeping, but when it comes to athletes and a huge game, right? They sleep properly. They, a lot of them will meditate or get into a mindset. They'll rest. A huge preparation. If you're going to a big business meeting, if I'm coming to this podcast, there's things I did this morning. I'm like, I want to eat a couple things properly. Yeah. I want to eat. I want to drink this next. I want to be sharp as we're talking, so that when people are listening, they can get me right. So there's certain things you do to prep for this stuff. This is going to end in probably about 25 minutes. This will be done and over with, right? The big game that players are playing in, that's over, right? The championship, there's an end to that. Business meetings, your career in business, there's an end to that. There's no end to sleeping. And I talk with this. So how are you not prepping for sleep like the biggest meeting of your life, like the biggest championship game of your life? How are you not doing that? Your 33% of your life on average is spent doing this. And so I think with having the stuff in your toolbox, and this is making it great. Honestly, I like the idea of Wealth Busters. In order to break through, you had to make some changes. And I bet you if you go back, the changes those people made, or every story you get, would be like, I started exercising every morning. I lost 50 pounds. I quit smoking. I reached out to a mentor. I got connected with nature. Something. They'll be like, there was some type of like, well, you could have done that always. But until I was poor or broke or tragedy, then something changed. Yeah. But you can take control of that today. Yeah. And I'm not saying you need to go climb Mount Everest. Yeah. I'm saying put your shoes on, right? Tie them up, right? Yeah. You can do these things.
Yeah. And it's something I said it, and maybe you can put it better, Jarrett, is that when you start getting to good habits, get into making good decisions in business or in regular life, that momentum built up. The confidence that you get in real life does not come from what car you drive, what clothes you're wearing, but it comes from the action that you took to get you where you are. And that momentum will give you the momentum to bring you to the next level. And that good cycle of psychological confidence you gain from your past action will continue to push you forward. And that's the real confidence in life, even in wealth, because you start one insurance policy, you're like, this freaking work. It help out so many of our family members. So that was the right thing. That's why I save up some of these money, put it on the side to do that. Right? Anything like that is because you did the first thing and built the momentum on top. Right? That's just me, right? All the past action.
Yeah, well, in confidence, I heard a thing one time. Confidence is little bits and pieces. Confidence, I heard a thing one time with people with no confidence. I liked it. It was you make a promise to yourself and you don't follow through with it. So now you don't have confidence.
You don't walk the talk. And now you're lying to yourself straight up.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden you're like, oh, I said I would do that, but I didn't. But if you set a small goal for yourself, or a large goal, whatever, but small goals, people always talk about, and you accomplish that, what you don't know is that you're building a bit of confidence. You don't feel it, right? But if I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to run 1 kilometer, did it. But if I say I'm going to go run a marathon, good luck. Yeah. Like I'm failing that. Today I'm failing that. I'm not a long distance runner. So if I'm like, I'm going to go for 2 kilometer run. I'm like, oh shit, this is going to be hard. And I'll do it and I'll get there and be like, I'm not doing 2 kilometers again. I suck at running, but then I'm like, I did it. Okay, next time's 2.1. Next time's 2.2. Slowly. But if you do a marathon, you'll fail, right? Yeah. But what else is that? I'm going to start, I'm going to do the laundry. Yeah. And you don't do it. You're like, right now I have a mess. Whatever it is, there's so many little things that if you don't follow through on little promises to yourself, because I can promise Hollywood, I can promise you something. Now it's a promise to you. That's integrity, which is the highest on my priority list. If I don't make a promise to myself, how am I supposed to build that little bit of confidence? And you can do that every day as well, right? I'm going to drink water. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m., whatever it is.
Yeah. You put it really nicely. Now, I know we're not a health buster, but health is part of wealth. Let's take the shift back into wealth busters. What are the things that you know as an expert in insurance, as an expert in estate planning, working with high net worth, ultra high net worth clients? What do you know that we don't know? What do they know that is bringing them out of the matrix that you want to share to our listeners? I know that's a big question.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure. It's nothing no one doesn't know, right? I don't have, there's no crystal ball. And Hollywood said it best with, you can find anything else. You can find anything else. Find out anything you want. The biggest thing, and we're writing another book on it right now, my co-author and I, on emotions and money. Emotions and money. Right. Everyone ties money to emotion. For good reason, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure there's going to be a solution to this, right? Like to break it. But what the goal for this book and this journey with my co-author is to at least explain to people, do you realize this? So there's no way on God's green earth that you're working for this little piece of paper with some notary public, past prime minister, president on it. You're not like, yeah, $100 bill. No, you're working because this thing lets you do that thing.
Yeah, money is just a flow through.
It's just a tool.
It's a tool.
But what you're looking for is that vacation with your kids or family Correct. Or best friend, right? You're Correct. Looking for that, right? Mm-hmm. So that feeling is an emotional thing. Mm-hmm. If loss aversion is big, and people. If you research loss aversion, people are like, what is it? Like, well, you don't have $20 right now. If I give you $20 and tomorrow, right, you just got it, right? Mm-hmm. And I come back and I take it from you, you're going to be pissed I took $20 from you. And what it is with loss aversion is people are more
afraid of losing money,
afraid of losing it,
then getting to the next level,
then gaining it. Gaining it, right? Yeah. Like that's a good way of getting to the next level. They're like, well, in order for me to do. I'm good with what I have.
Yeah.
Right? And that's
a scarcity mindset.
So 100%. Yeah. And so we talk about that in this book too. And it's again, it's education. Let people know. I'm like, really? Do you think that $100 is making you happy? Well, yeah. Well, because I can do this. I'm like, okay. So, and I've said this before too as an analogy. I'm like, what if I hired somebody? You said you have employees. What if I hired someone and said, there's no pay? I was saying this to Hollywood. There's no pay. I go, okay, well, but your mortgage will be taken care of. There'll be food in your house every week. I'll pay for vacation twice a year. You'll have every weekend off. Be gas in your car. Pay for your cell phone. Right? Blah, blah, blah. There you go. Just show up and help me. Just help me. Whoa. Like, that's what you're working for. You're working to pay for your cell phone. You're working to go on vacation. You're working to put food in your tip. That's what because that makes you feel good. Cooking food for my kids to see them nourish and have energy. That's the feeling, but you've tied it to money. Right? And that's just a mindset that's years and years and years and years of working, right? The old school mentality of, the old boys club way back when, who worked 14 hours a day to provide for their family. Like it's come up through our society. And again, I don't think we're going to change it. And there's days, where I get frustrated with money myself, and emotions play a role. Yeah. And I've been up at night over my own, career and financial planning, going, oh my God, what's going to happen?
I know our audience love these failure stories. Can you share a few of your own and something?
Driving home I retired from hockey. No, quit.
You were a professional hockey player.
Well,
right?
Sure.
Okay. Lower.
I played semi-pro hockey.
Semi-pro. Yeah,
I tried to go. So I went to Brown University, which was amazing. And then from there, you start to play some pro hockey and tried to go up the ranks. So I had a cup of coffee in the AHL. Went down, played some games in the East Coast. But I won a championship in Fayetteville in the SPHL with the best group of guys. I'm still super close with them. We see each other all the time. It's amazing. Yeah. We were treated like celebrities in that city. We were paid, I think, $300 a week. Zero. My bar bill was $400 a week, right? So it doesn't even make sense. But apartments were paid for. Our booster clubs were amazing. To this day, I still talk to them. They were incredible. And at the time, I was 25. immature, but just loving life, right?
Yeah, enjoying life.
Thinking, okay, you start here.
I'm going to get there.
There's only one way up, right?
Yeah.
It's SPHL, and
you're invincible.
That's it.
Right? At age 25, that's what we thought.
Invincible. And I'm in the insurance industry.
We're going to have more time. We're going to have more everything. We're not going to break our leg. No, nothing will happen.
And who cares about debt and something like that? I'm going to the bar. So realization happened. I'm like, okay, it's done. My passion was leaving with hockey, and I quit, right? Because when you retire from hockey, it means you have enough money to continue living. I'm driving home. It's a 12-hour drive home. I'm driving home, and I run out of gas. I don't have money. I'm like, I got to call some people. I don't have money.
You didn't have a credit card?
Nothing. It was maxed out, I think, on something. I don't know, bar bill. From the night before, probably. Like, just nothing. I'm like, what do I do? And I had to call some people to lend me money to get gas in my car to get home. And I call a buddy of mine in Kingston I knew. I said, I need a job. He owned a bar. I go, can you help me? I need a job. And he goes, come in, I'll interview, and we figured it out. So, it was a complete failure, low story. No, I mean, I had an Ivy League education and I had some support, but yeah, I was in the middle of, I think I was like Pennsylvania, coming home, like Pittsburgh area, something. And I'm like, shit, I'm out of gas. I'm out. I'm at a gas station.
How old were you at that point?
29.
29.
And then got into the insurance industry. I certainly wasn't sold the bill of goods, but who interviewed me and showed me was like, we expect our first year advisors to make, if they do it properly, make about $50,000, I think.
Is that what they say?
I think so. At the time, I forget. Yeah. And I would have been like, that's rich. You're rich. You're rich. 50 grand, you're rich. So.
And you were playing semi-pro hockey player.
Yeah.
But you're only making $300 per week. So
that's only while you're playing. Like 6 months a year, right? So October to like April.
That's not even enough for you to buy equipment and stay healthy.
Well, that's what I mean. That's free, right? Equipment's paid for. Our boosters were made. We ate for free because room and board and accommodations were paid for, right?
Yeah.
But $300, like I had a cell phone, I had a student loan, I had a car, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
However, you get through it. Lots of guys do it, and it's the time of your life because I have no regrets from any of it. And when I got in the insurance industry and started building my own block with Freedom 55, I remember going to the streetcar to go to the office at downtown Toronto, and I only had a toonie, and it was $325 to ride the streetcar. So I took off my sports jacket and my tie and everything. I had a t-shirt on, carried it. It was like 31 degrees outside. Stopped and got a Timmy's. That was $1.80 for a large, I think, at the time. Stopped and got a Timmy's and walked to the office and was just dripping in sweat.
Yeah.
And showed up. I'm like, hey, I got to the office today. I had a toonie. That's all I had, a toonie. I'm like, I got nothing. And then start making phone calls because in that part of, I think, why I became a successful advisor is because I wanted to help people, right? And my best friend, one of my best friends, we've talked about him before, and I'm going to have him on a podcast. He had said to me, he works with me now, and he didn't in the past. He grew up with me, so he saw like no money, right? He knew my family. He's like, how can you be an advisor? You're a joke with money, right? But you learn. Mm-hmm. He goes, the reason why you're my advisor is because you basically grew up with no money, right? Mm-hmm. Got everything I wanted. My parents were amazing. I don't remember not having stuff, but grew up in a world where, we didn't invest enough money. So instead of running from it, mm-hmm. he goes, you literally looked at this shitstorm, learned everything you need to know, went head on. Mm-hmm. He goes, that's why you're my advisor. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit. And I go, it's literally what I did. I needed to learn everything there was to know so that I could sit down with someone and say, hey, here's the deal. I know this part, mm-hmm. and now I know this part, and now I've worked with everyone in between, from still no money to ultra high net worth people who own hockey teams and businesses, and they're hundreds of millions of dollars net worth, mm-hmm. and everyone thinks the same. Everyone has the same problems. Everyone just spends the same amount of money, and at the end of the day, we've talked about in our business, it has nothing to do with the amount of money you make. It has everything to do with how much money you keep. If you make $1 million a month and you spend $999,999, you have no money.
Yeah.
If you make $1,000 a month and you spend $500, you've got $500, and that puts food on the table. That allows you to do something with charity. That allows you to save. That allows you to invest, right? So it has nothing to do with how much money you make. It has everything to do with how much money you keep, and that's where we come into play. Their business saying, "So what have you kept?" Because someone says, "Well, I make $680,000 a year." I'm like, "Okay, all right. Well, we can."
Who are these people?
Let's chat.
You don't have to mention name, but
business owners would be a big one. Business owners are the main ones. I mean, you start
gross income is 680, right? Not net or net.
Yeah, they're gross. They'll just pay themselves, right? If you pay yourself $100,000 a month, right? Or you pay yourself $90,000
$100,000 a month.
You have to, right? You have to pay yourself that much, because if you make X amount, the government will start to come in and be like, "Look, I know you run your business. You're an employee of yourself. You got to pay yourself. You can't just hide everything in your company."
90K per month or per year?
No, per month.
Per month.
Of course, right? If you're
90K per month.
Well, yeah, and that just goes into like nothing. They kind of have to show the government, "Hey, look, I'm paying myself," right? If you have a multi-million-dollar company, right, you have to pay yourself that much. You can't just say to the government, "Oh yeah, I only make $60,000 a year." No, you don't. Your company makes $800 million. You make more than $60K a year, right? So you have these conversations. You go, "Okay, so what do you got?" Like, well, I own 3 hockey teams, and I own this business. I own 14 cars, and I spend money here. We go on, I'm like, okay, well, we're talking about a insurance policy you need to do for your family and for estate and tax purposes. It's going to cost $20,000 a month. Like, and they go, "Where's that going to come from?" I go, "Okay, well, let's talk here, right? Let's start to help you out. Let's talk with your CFO. Let's talk with your accountants. Let's do a plan to figure out how we can help you out." So it has nothing to do with how much money you make. It's everything to do with how much money you keep. And then when we get up to those different levels, and it starts at every level, but taxes are a big one, right? Everyone talks about they don't want to pay taxes and whatnot. Like, taxes aren't a horrible thing. You can do tax planning. You can figure this out, and that's what we help with.
And that's say if a lot of our listeners are net worth between the 1 to 10 million range. For clients like that, what do you see that can help them out immediately?
One of the things I learned early on, which is amazing. So I'm a big believer in insurance. Some people may not be. And the people who come to me and say insurance is a fraud, said, "Perfect, let's talk about it," right? Because what I've learned, it's extremely objective and brilliant. And the people who want the most amount of insurance are high net worth people. And that automatically gets people going, "Well, why do rich people want insurance?" Let me explain. So in Canada, there's 2 places you can invest money tax-free. TFSA, RSP, principal residence. However, if you sell your principal residence, you got to live somewhere else, right? Yeah. So yes, but we kind of just leave that here. So you max out your TFSA, max out your RSP. The maximum amount you can put in your TFSA is $6,500 a year. Yeah. If you haven't maxed out, you have a maximum amount now. But say $6,500 a year, and the maximum RSP I think is up to $28,000 or and change, right? So high net worth clientele, right, in a paycheck or 2,
it's more than that,
gone. Yeah. Right. So they're like, "Here's $6,500, and then I shoot that away in my RSPs, $20,000. Now what? There's one other place you can invest money, tax sheltered, which is a life insurance policy. Now, money pays for insurance, and people go, "Oh yeah," but I go, "Health is what buys it," because I've got people who are extremely wealthy who cannot qualify for insurance. Their health. Cancers, heart attacks, high blood pressure, cholesterol, whatever it is. They haven't taken care of themselves. So like, I want to pay $2 million. And as a commissioned person, you're thinking, right? You're licking your chops. Do you qualify? Answer all these questions like, I have a lump here, and I've had a cyst here, and I've had this surgery and that. You're not gonna qualify. They can't physically get it, right? Yeah. So this infinite banking we were talking about, it's a big thing right now. It's a marketing thing, but it's life insurance. If you qualify and you work with a planner, then there's room for it in your portfolio. And at no point would I ever tell someone do 100% of your savings into insurance policy, because there's characteristics of that asset that don't allow you to do certain things like a TFSA does, or an RSP, or cash, or real estate, or a non-registered, an open account. Assets have different characteristics. So the insurance plays a certain role. But the tax is a big, big, big one. When we start sitting down with business owners, if they have holding companies and trusts and things like that, saying, well, I see there's a couple $1,000,000 here sitting in your holding company. What are you doing with it? Like, well, we move it from our operating company to our holdco because we can, and we just leave it up there. If we start to invest, it attracts these different types of taxes. Said, absolutely. Have you thought about doing an insurance policy in there? I see you and your wife or you and your spouse are co-owners of that holding company. Do you know you can use insurance? Well, what's that? And we show them. And just lights start going off. Said, well, that's brilliant. Said, yeah, I agree. So let's look at some different solutions, because there's some companies out there that are the best when it comes to that type of planning.
And a lot of people might not understand, what do you mean by investing money tax-free in insurance policy? How is it tax-free?
Okay, great question. So we call it investment grade life insurance. When you put money into an insurance policy, there's a cash value side. There's in the Canadian government this thing called an MTAR line. So it's a way for the government to say, you can invest this much money inside of a policy, and here's with all the actuaries, how they look at it, here's how it will grow. And as long as it doesn't surpass this line, which is very difficult to do with the amount of premiums you put in, right? You can't get rich off insurance, right? Because then everyone would be doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's all risk reward, because if what's going on over there? Yeah, and we'll cut it out. But if you invest X amount into some business or real estate, you could get, right, you could blow the doors off, but there's tax consequences. So with insurance, there's certain legislative rules that you can only invest so much, and you just got to stay below this line. But that's what the actuaries are for, to say, if you're going to put $100,000 in an insurance policy, if you die, this is tax-free, because it's still an insurance policy. So if you die, your beneficiaries will get this much money tax-free. That's
doesn't even have to go through probate.
Right. Avoids probate, and it's private. So a lot of business owners and high net worth people like this, because they can name private, right? You can imagine the things out there that some people need private.
Correct.
So wills we talk about, I'll get back to the life insurance, kind of the tax-free part, but everyone talks about having a will. So yes, do you understand that a will is just a piece of paper with words on it? People go, what do you mean? I go, there's nothing legal about a will. And that's something else I try to tell people. See, what do you mean? I said, well, if I die, my wife can't look down 6 feet and say, hey babe, sorry, one last question. There was an account with 50 grand in it. Where do you want me to put that? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a piece of paper. There's an account, blah, blah, blah. Please send that to so-and-so, right? Or please do this with that. Yeah. That's all a will is. But a will is contestable, right? So it's public knowledge. If in the private, in big scheme of things, if you're a public figure, it's private. So was it Aretha Franklin? I think Hollywood, you want to check that? Aretha Franklin or Whitney? Aretha Franklin, I believe, died with no will. Just exposed her entire millions and millions and millions. So then other people control it. So life insurance, private, you get to decide. Huge, tax-free. So that's the death benefit portion. Then the cash that gets invested inside of a life insurance policy is below that MTAR line. It grows tax sheltered. When you go to take the money out, if you need to access that cash, this is the tax-free part, right? If you take it directly from the policy, there's what's called an ACB, adjusted cost base. There's net cost of pure insurance. There's all these little things. You can get some money out tax-free. Really, it's like a return of capital. They can't tax you on your own money. If you take it all out at a certain period of time, there'll be some taxes, way less than you would pay on anything else. However, the other part that people do is you use it as leverage, like home equity, this infinite banking. You can tap into the money and take it out and put it back and take it out and put it back. You can become your own bank. And there's a way to get it out of your policy completely tax-free. You may pay some interest on it.
So you can write it off.
You can write it off. And I tell people that. I'm like, would you rather pay 53% taxes or 6% interest?
Yeah.
10% interest, right? And you put it back or whatever it is, 2% interest, right? A couple of years ago, interest was super low. A year later, the fight over Aretha Franklin's estate deepens. So she died with nothing, right? Her house, saying that her house qualifies as valid wills. So it's right, bitter squabbling, her handwritten documents found in her house. Yeah, well, there you go. But she died. That was a big thing with no wills, and it's just a letter. So there's things that I helped. These are legal documents. If you do this, legal, that will go there. So we tell people it's a way to control your estate when you're gone. If you want to have some control, and with high net worth clientele is, so the government's coming in for you 100%. Right? So the government, the minute you die, the government's going to say, okay, I'm part of this family. So we can avoid that in a strategic way and a legal way. And then you want more to go to your family or more to go to this charity or something, we can plan that legally, right? If you just put on this piece of paper, I want $10 million to go to this, my favorite charity, the government says, well, you owe me 6. Yeah. And now there's only a couple million left over because you want to give some to your family. That's how it runs. So you can have control with that. But the tax sheltered and the tax-free part with the life insurance is there's ways to get out leveraging your insurance policy, and that's the tax-free part.
Got it. That's a really good insight into insurance policy. So actionable steps for my listeners who are net worth between 1 to 10 million. I know the example that you show of someone who owns hockey teams and all that, they're probably north of 10 million of net worth, right? But if most of our listeners are net worth between 1 to 10 million right now, some of them over, what are some actionable steps or some checklists that you go through with your clients and say, if you don't have these, you should do this right now? Dun, dun, dun. What are those?
2 things. Making sure you have an operating company, right? If your net worth between 1 to 10 million, you're a business owner. I'll go down this route. You have an operating company, so you want to have a holding company because you can move money from your operating company, retained earnings, to your operating company, tax-free. It's called an intercorporate dividend.
Correct.
So you move that up to the hold co. Yeah. Now that protects, right? It adds a layer of liability. It protects your...
I have that,
it protects your opco, right?
Yeah.
If something happens to your opco, you get sued. Yeah. All that's in there is what's available. The hold co is protected. Yeah. Then what's in your holding company, I would say, look at insurance, right? Talk to an advisor.
I did that exactly the same thing.
and just explore it. Say, okay, I've got $10,000 in my hold co. Great. What if you did $2,500 a year? Because next year you're going to have more retained earnings. But I got $3 million in my hold co. Okay, well, what if you did $100,000 a year? Right? And there's policies we can plan it out to earmark money. So take $1 million. We say, let's earmark this towards insurance. But we're not going to put all $1 million today. We're going to earmark it. So keep the $1 million, and we can help you invest it in something that's more flexible and accessible. But $100,000 a year, we're going to move for 10 years. Lots of policies out there that'll let you do that. Contractually, for 10 years, you're done.
Yep.
And then you've planned that money. And you know what? In 2-3 years, you're like, shit, something came up. I can't make that transfer. Guess what? There's cash in your policy that'll float this year. You're good.
Yeah.
Right? So
you have some bridge, right? You can still take out the loans from your cash value. Yes, you're paying 6%, but that's just kept bridging the gap between the planning of the money.
Well, even in some policies at the 4th, 5th, 6th year,
it carries itself.
It carries itself.
Yeah, my policy after 5th year, it carries itself.
Some will carry themselves for the life of the policy, and some it's just if something comes up in life and you go, you know what, I don't want to pay this year. Don't. It changes the numbers, but that's okay. Life changes, right?
Yeah.
So it changed value. So no problem. Your premium was $100,000. Yeah, the cash, there's $380,000 in there. So $100,000 will go towards the premium this year. Next year, pick it back up. So I always tell people when I'm doing any plan, I want you to have flexibility. I want you to have control, and I want you to have choice. Those are probably the 3 that when we do anything, I don't want you to be locked in. Some things are contractual for sure, but they make that agreement and they talk about it, and they understand that. But I want you to have flexibility, I want you to have control, and I want you to have choice.
Cool. I think that's a good way to end this podcast. You brought a lot of knowledge, especially on the insurance side as a financial planner, working with people from different status, different net worth, and thanks for being on the show today, Jarrett.
It's been awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.